My fascination for Jean Varda came almost 40 years ago as I did a publication about the King Ubu Gallery, which was the first gallery in San Francisco. It was after the play Ubu Roy. I was really fortunate in those interviews of all these people that showed in 52 and 53 that I asked them questions about where they studied and what they did. And then I proceeded to do another publication, another show, which was about the Sixth Gallery. And that was from 54 to 57. And what was amazing about all of this was that they all seemed to have color and composition with Jean Varda. I did an interview with Joan Brown. She's probably the most important female painter, her and Jay DeFeo coming out of the Bay Area at that time. And she talks about Varda giving her the impetus to do color. Now, what's interesting about Varda, on the Vallejo, the boat where he lived there with Gordon Onslow Ford, then he lived there with the great Zen master Alan Watts. He always found stuff and he made things out of it, collage, assemblage. And this was something that these artists weren't really familiar with.
Jean Varda, sometime in the 1930s, started using this really cool technique of embedding glass into cement to create what he called mosaics, and what the whole art world just kind of fell in love with. What he would do was to actually take mirrors and to scrape away the silver so that the glass was transparent, and then he would paint underneath it. And these were just really creative. They were very much inspired by his exposure to Byzantine mosaics, because he was from what is now Izmir, Turkey, Smyrna, when he was born. So he was really inspired by that style. And sometimes he'd leave some silver or some gold just to, again, recall that really great style from the Byzantine era.
And so he gets to San Francisco, he's teaching there, and he's not an abstract expressionist, and he's not doing figurative work, so he's not part of a movement. Instead, Varda creates, wherever Varda went, he created his own world.
Freedom is when the imperious hand of destiny says paint. And you say, but I have varicose veins, paint. And my stepson is dying out of cancer, paint. And my child has not enough milk to live, paint.
Varda was known for being very prolific. He always said that you should be working constantly, that you should be able to finish an artwork every single day. So he usually had multiple paintings, multiple collages going at any given moment, and he would try and finish one every day.
So what you have is you have someone who is open and is friends with poets, playwrights, filmmakers, and certainly we can see that the Beat Generation came to his boat for events.
Varda's parties were legendary, they were newsworthy, they were actually written up in local newspapers. They attracted hundreds of people, and it was a really wide variety of people. It wasn't just the bohemian artists, it was the bourgeoisie, it was the elite of San Francisco who would find their way out to first Monterey and then later to Sausalito. His subject matter varied a good amount, but he did really like to depict these kind of grandiose women with these really stately figures. So they were typically done in a cubist style, and they were anonymous, unidentified women, but they were dressed regally, and they were often in some kind of form of leisure.
Called Women Reconstructing the World. Father had this obsession with clothes, with little pieces of textile that he used in his collages. So one day I arrived and he walked up to me and he looked at the lining of my coat in an obsessional way and said, "Oh, I would love to have a little piece of that." And I really did say yes right away. For a woman to cut the lining of her coat takes a little hesitation. I did. I slashed right through it and sent him the piece.
The other major subject matter that he dealt with was his celestial cities, which was, according to Alan Watts, a subject matter that he told Varda to explore. And these were just beautiful depictions of, again, generic cities. He was deeply interested in the philosophical side of beauty, and he loved to explore this.
But what is amazing about this versatile experience, Varda does not really remember for his art or for these performances. And he did George Hitchcock's play, Dr. Faustus. He did the background. He did a lot of the costumes. He's remembered more as an iconic place where culture happened and people gathered. He treated all the ethnic groups very, very well. He was tight with Ruth Asawa. He was tight with Maya Angelou. He was tight with Hayward King. He was very good with the gay community. He was good with everybody. So that is interesting, that broad acceptance of people. Getting Maya Angelou to quit, she was singing at the Purple Onion when she met her, and getting her to be a poet, and giving a lot of these young people the courage and the energy to start their careers and to have their own voice and not to be afraid to do this. This is a critical thing that he passed to my teachers, especially Roy DeForest passed that on to me. I learned that from Hayward King. They all taught me that idea of I need to, do what they did. I need to pass on to the next generation that they need to just get out there. So the fear that was not there for Varda.
Varda was very famous in his lifetime. Like I mentioned, there were dozens of newspaper articles just about him, about his parties. But I think over time, most of his milieu, most of the people he knew, they have sadly passed on. And they're not here anymore to tell his story, which is why we're so excited to be here now telling his story and sharing his incredible life and his incredible art.
Make one line so perfect, you work like a beaver the whole night, refusing all the comforts of life, in order that this line will be like a ship that will cross to the furthest shores of time. This man is not free. He cannot